Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing? Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation on this side of the year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. How are you doing?
Very well.
All right.
Very good to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
We want to discuss something that you've been talking about as the Law Society of Kenya. And let me just quote from your tweet. You said that advocates across the 8 LSK branches will hold a peaceful protest on the 20th of March. No, a peaceful protest march on the 20th of January. That's from tomorrow. Against delays, inefficiencies, and collapse of service across the land registries. Members of the public are invited to join. Routes and details will be shared. And people wondering, okay, so you are demonstrating because of collapse of services and inefficiencies at the land registry. What exactly is happening?
Just exactly what the tweet says.
Collapse of
services.
Okay.
You see, land first is a factor of production. And when you have a piece of land, you have several rights that you are given on that piece of land. You can use it as collateral. You can use it for construction. You can sell it. And all those are constitutionally guaranteed rights. So by virtue of you having a title or a piece of paper conferring to you a title over ownership of land, it gives you those rights. And they should be available to you as and when you would want to use them. That is why when someone invades your piece of land, you go to the police and they come and remove him because you are the only person who is entitled to use that land. Now, who's the custodian of those of the documentation? It is the ministry. So the ministry should be able to facilitate the landowner to use his land in any way he deems fit, as by law guaranteed to him by the ownership of title. So the situation we're having is that, for example, in Nairobi and also in other registries across the country, is that you cannot be able to conduct a search. So all transactions begin and end with a search. So if it will take you 2 months, 3 months to conduct a search, it
Just
basically
to establish
means
that this land
actually belongs to yes,
and he wants to sell it to me.
and he wants to sell it to you.
And it's a piece of rock.
Yes.
Mr. Theuri, I'd like to explain this. What do you mean you cannot conduct a search?
I'm saying it takes so long to conduct a search.
How long?
2 months, 3
What?
months. In Nairobi, it can even take you 4 months, 5 months. That's a reality.
Okay, tell us. If today I wanted to do a search,
Yes.
what is the process?
You, of course, fill in the normal forms for conducting a search.
Where do I get the forms?
They are online. They are even on the ministry's website.
So I go online, I download a form.
You go online and download the form.
Okay.
And you print the details that are required and you take it to the registry.
Okay.
So if you are going to a registry outside Nairobi, you will be doing this manually. If you want to do it in a registry in Nairobi, you'll be doing it digitally. Now that's where the problem begins.
Digitally in Nairobi, how do I do it?
You're supposed to log in on Ardisasa. You go to the portal. You indicate that you intend to do a search. First of all, there is a process of registration and all that. Then you indicate you want to do a search. And then you fill in the details and you submit.
Okay.
And then the process of waiting starts.
So in the interim, after you filled in everything, what are they supposed to do? What is the system
The
supposed to do?
system is supposed to communicate with you, check their records, and then confirm that actually this land belongs to Muga, and tells you it does.
Okay.
And then you continue with the next transaction.
Okay.
But when it cannot communicate with you,
Then you're stuck at that point
you're
of
stuck at that
application.
point, at the point of application. And you see now, because ideally the ministry in Nairobi is supposed to be online, it basically means, and
That you
there's
cannot
no
go.
other alternative to
You
be
cannot
able
go
to
physically.
You cannot go physically, then you're stuck.
Sure. Before we even get to, the issues that this will obviously cause, or that has already started causing, what would be the reason why this system would not work as prescribed? Why? What could be wrong? A bug in the system? I almost hear you saying that there is determined manipulation. Why would it not work?
It's so much a question of design flaw, because the ministry is the custodian of records. But unfortunately, and this is now the problem that is also across the country, those records, most of them, have issues. So there are places where there are records which are missing. There are places where, for example, let me give you a very good example. If you've been allotted a plot by the Nairobi City Council, they'll give you the plot. They are the ones who knows where the plot is. They'll give you the plot, and then you will go to the ministry and they'll issue you the title once the county government has done its process. Then you have a title. So for the ministry to be able to put the title on this system, they have to develop what is called a cadastre map. A cadastre map means that they come to the ground and they take the actual coordinates. So that when they put it on the system, it is actual land that you can actually, when you're searching, see it virtually on the system by the coordinates. And if you put in the coordinates on Google, it should be able to take you to that land. Now, the problem here is this, that a lot of land has been given by the county government, of course, the predecessor Nairobi City County, and the two systems have not been interlinked.
The county system and the national ministry system
have not been interlinked. So for the ministry to verify that this land actually exists, it requires the county government, which knows where that land is located, to actually go on the ground and verify. Those survey maps, but verify now for them to be able to develop a cadastre that can be uploaded onto the system.
Okay.
So now what that tells you is, and this is the situation that you're seeing, you find someone who already maybe has a loan and it has been charged and he has finished paying, and the bank is willing to give him additional facilities on his land. When he goes to the ministry tells him, wait a minute, we can't transact on this land because we are unable to verify that it actually exists, because the cadastre map that we have has not been updated to fit into the digital platform. So you wait, we are communicating with Nairobi County to be able to do that. So what was happening, Nairobi County is not part of the system. They don't have a budget for developing the cadastre. So you are stuck.
Right. Okay, Mr. President. The former CS told us when this was being launched, the day she was giving a presser about the launch of this system, she was here in the morning. She told us that she mentioned something to the effect of that they were continuing to make sure that all these systems were plugged in, making sure that when people came in, that then they would be able to do the very things that you're saying today they cannot, right? And she said the reason why it would be frustrating for some folks is because people still wanted to do the underhanded thing of passing money under the table, and people did not want to go through a digitized system. She said, okay, the remaining kinks, we are working on them. How is it possible that something so huge, in the manner of which you are discussing, was overlooked or not paid attention to on the matter of budgets? How?
Don't you get the impression it was actually paid attention to? That's why it's not working.
I'm actually deliberately asking this question in an almost naive manner because I want to be explained to like a child so that I can understand.
I mean, it's a question that baffles all of us, and we've had extensive discussions with the Ministry of Lands. I mean, over this period as they were introducing all these things, and we've had a lot of discussions around some of these very technical areas, as you are saying. And of course, government is one to promise. Of course, we'll put the resources. We will do that. But ultimately, I mean, if you look at it, the biggest loser beyond the members of the public is also the government, because it is unable to collect revenue. And then secondly, the president has been going about, the country talking about affordable housing and all that. But affordable housing is actually a concept that is supported by the private sector. So for the private sector, they must be able to first access a loan, build, sell and transfer, and in the process of sell and transfer, and to be able to pay back the loan.
Yep.
So which developer would go to the bank, buy, get a loan, develop, get potential purchasers who are all waiting on the line, and then he is unable to complete the transfer process.
Yeah.
So it is frustrating business. So everyone who is in unless it is government backed and government guaranteed, will have a problem, because they know eventually they would be unable to transfer those properties to the rightful owners, and that will frustrate their ability to repay the loans. So that is actually the kind of challenge that we are talking about. That when you take a property, perhaps to a lawyer to give you advice as an investor, he will tell you, please hold, because if we begin this process, we would be unable to complete it.
It'll take us 4 to 6 months.
Yes.
Just to get a search result and then continue with the process.
Yes, and then even eventual purchasers will have a problem
with transferring.
And I'm sure you've seen it in the press. A few instances of people having purchased properties offline and have been conned.
Yep.
Now this confusion within the system, and sometimes you are looking at it and thinking like, if I don't buy this property, I'm going to lose this investment. It's perhaps partly contributing to people losing money through these guys who are coming up with extremely ingenious and very attractive schemes to sell pieces of land and to construct, and people buy off plan, and then they get duped.
So Eric, the full digitization, rollout of Athisasa started in Nairobi. And this is why we are seeing the main issues, because Athisasa is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Is this replicated across the country? Because you said the other registries, you actually go and you can file manually. So are there delays in those other parts of the country where you submit your application manually?
The problem with Athisasa, other than the system then not working, is because the Athisasa platform doesn't have also all the titles because of gaps in the documentation of those titles. So the problem that you face in other registries across the country is almost same, only that you're now going there physically, but you find that the documentation is wanting. So if you go and you find that you own a piece of land, but the file for that parcel is missing, then you cannot be able to transact on that parcel.
But isn't this what this system was designed to eliminate in the first place? That you didn't need to deal with a missing file. That because they went through the months and months of, remember, it was a long period. They went through the months and months of digitization of these paper files.
And verification.
So that this thing that you're talking about could be avoided. That's what it was about.
That was what it was about. But that is not what is happening. And the reason why, as a law society, we have steadfastly supported the process of digitization of land is to actually eliminate fraud and aspects of missing documentation at the ministry. Because at the end of the day, the people who mostly interact with these documents and parcel at the time of transfer would be advocates. So if the documents are if the documentation is wanting, then you see the process now that we have to go through of verification of a title is that you just don't get a search. You get a search, you go to the registry, you check the file, you check the previous transfers and the previous transfers just to be sure that this transaction is legitimate. So that we wanted, because this system was taking all that back to the ministry, who is supposed to do that, so that when they give you a search,
They have done everything.
They have done everything. And in law, a search is actually a warranty. If you get a search from the Ministry of Lands that this land belongs to Theuri, and you go and search and you find that it does not belong to me, and having relied on that search, you have lost money, then you go to the government for indemnity. That is what a search in law means. And so we were happy with this system because it will, go back. And if you want to do what you call a historical search, to see from the time this land was first registered, the owners and how it has moved to the current owner, you would be able to do that. And that is what now we have been forced as lawyers to engage in, and also purchasers have been forced to engage in. Now, it's no longer about, being told that we've been seeing Muga on this piece of land, he's been cultivating it for the last 2 years, we know him to be the owner, because that sometimes is not the real deal. You buy, and then several years later, the real owner shows up. And he says, I've been in the United States, been living there, and these are my documents, and this is the original receipt I used to pay for it. And then when that issue is looked at, you discover that Muga has been living on that land.
He's been a squatter.
But it's just, he went to River Road, got some documents, put them in the Ministry of Lands. When you went to do a search, you found that he's the owner. But much later, you actually discover that was a fraud. And the only way we can eliminate that is by having a system that gives you a guarantee that whatever it says, that is the true position.
That's the truth. Let's take a break because So tomorrow lawyers want to go on strike. No, not to go on strike. Tomorrow lawyers want to demonstrate
peacefully.
Peaceful march. Eric will tell us the route, and he's also encouraging other members of the public to join in that march because they're saying there are inefficiencies and delays at the land registries across the country. And he's saying from all the 8 branches of the Law Society of Kenya, lawyers are going to be doing this. So judges can take a break tomorrow. They can finish the other pending work.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Eric, in the last 9-10 years, we've seen a lot of work being done at the Lands Registry. Started with the CS then, Charity Ngilu, saying, let's digitize. And in fact, young students from the universities were hired to go and do the digitization of records at the Lands Registries. And then it moved on, it moved into proper digitization with the launch of Adhisasa. As that was happening, also the president was launching projects on, geospatial mapping across the country, working with the military and all, and looking at land. And all these were supposed to harmonize and make sure that all our records are clean and efficient. Now, explain why then would be where we are today. So what is it that happened when Ngilu closed the Lands Registry for a while for digitization, and then it was reopened, and then Farida Karone came up with the Arthisasa and launched the Arthisasa. What are those? What was happening?
I think the problem that we have at the ministry also got to do with the sensitivity and the centrality of land to Kenyans. Each and every one of us inherently desires to own a piece of land, and so for a significant period of time, we've had a lot of challenges in terms of illegal and fraudulent transfers of land, and you want to imagine that therefore anyone who owns or holding on to property that has been fraudulently acquired would not be in support of this system. And some of them, unfortunately, happen to sit in extremely high positions of influence. So that's the first thing. The second thing is actually a legal challenge. Now, when you conduct digitization, as the ministry has attempted to conduct with Adisasa, and let's talk about Adisasa, you find that to effectively undertake that process, then you must, as what they have done, develop the cadastre map. But even as you develop the cadastre map, you must also go to the root, what we call the root of the title. So for this piece of land where we are standing on, it has a root. There was a time it was first registered. And then it subsequently moved from one owner to the other, to the other, to the other.
Subdivisions and all.
And all that. So there is a root. So when you get to the root and you discover, for example, and let's just say for purposes of this discussion, that this was government land, and that the process of acquisition of this land or conversion of this land from government to private was not followed, what are you supposed to do? So what the ministry is not telling you is that on such pieces of land, there is a legal question that has certain implications. Because the root of the title is shaky. And so therefore you cannot put it on the system. And this is the reason why you are seeing some of the challenges that are out here. That cannot come out from the ministry because they do not have a solution.
Why don't they have a solution?
Because they are people who already own that land in their private hands. But that land was previously government land, and the process of acquisition was not followed.
And you know very well, for that to have happened, there must have been some influential person who played a hand or two.
Yes. So how do you deal with that title?
And the ministry was involved.
Yes, the ministry was also involved.
Yes.
So how do you deal with that title? Because legally, in terms of the legal standing, that title, quote unquote, well, of course there has to be a court order to that effect, but is invalid.
How far back into history do you want to go with this subject?
Remember, when C.S. Karonei was here at that time, she actually talked about this. There are very many pieces of land where you see this had initially been earmarked for a forest land, for future public use and public facilities, and then they ended up going into private hands. Or this was an entire ranch where there was a whole political conversation of, let's allow people to come and live here. I mean, you were Kenya, that's what ended up. But then the process of formalizing it was not followed.
Okay.
And now those are the questions that were emerging. And she was saying, even at the point, that there were some that were not even getting into the Arthisasa system because they were looking back and wondering, okay, so how do we regularize this?
What comes to mind, there was a time, there was a huge hoo-ha in the papers about some residences in the Langata area.
Yep.
And it was said then that this had been part of the Ngong Forest.
Yes.
Okay, now historically, even the Met department was part of Ngong Forest.
Yep.
Okay, just so that if we can move ahead, all right? But more significantly, if you look at land that previously probably belonged to another government institution and was later put to other uses, some of it even useful. I'm thinking of Sunshine School on Langata Road. Prison land, formerly. Now, so when I ask how far back into history do you want to go, at what point do you say that perhaps this land was put to good use and it is beneficial to the citizenry? And at what point does the law allow such a thing to happen, even if there was some irregularity? Or is the law just black and white on this matter, where if the law was not followed, then forget about it. Let it revert back to factory settings.
I have a feeling this is why we established a commission and called it the National Lands Commission.
Oh, God.
To make sure all of those things were streamlined.
Oh, yeah, to a certain extent. And then there now comes another challenge. The National Land Commission is not on Adisas.
Good grief.
So NLC cannot see Arthisasa.
No.
I mean, you see, NLC probably have their own system. This system that NLC has or is developing, and I understand they were developing, if I'm not wrong, I would not want to speak quite authoritatively on this because I'm not so sure what their status is. But what I know for a fact is that they are not linked.
So it's like the proverb.
Yes,
The
so
reflection cannot see
ideally,
itself.
yes, that's what we were talking about. Ideally, if NLC has a system, that system should be able to communicate with the land system. It's just like what we were saying with Kanjo. For example, you have a piece of land. It is a residential use. You want to convert it into commercial. You go to the city hall. They give you
Change of user.
Change of user. You go through the process, the legal process for change of user, and it is manual. Then the registration and the conversion of that is supposed to be done at the ministry, which is digital. So this system.
But the lands ministry just knows this is residential.
Yes.
And
So now you take a physical form to the ministry for purposes of now conversion of that land
Digital.
to the user through a digital platform. I mean,
And the paper still remains.
yes. So how are you supposed to? Because this system ought to be configured in a way that once Kanjo is done with the change of user, it automatically communicates with the Ministry of Lands, and that process is undertaken.
Madam President, when these ministries or state departments or state agencies want to digitalize, there's a process they follow in acquiring these services. And usually the people they get into the fold are capable, even have a track record of having done this work. Now, this process we're describing is not a complicated process, not really. Even for someone like me who doesn't understand ICT, it's not complicated. So, how is it that this not complicated process suddenly has all these complications? And yet there are human beings involved.
Maybe that's where the
Maybe
complication
that's where
is.
the complication comes in.
it-
The involvement of humans.
It actually boils down to the design. It boils down to the design.
And does it design itself?
Eric, I'm hearing you, from what I'm hearing you say, is that this was intentionally designed thus.
Not to that extent. All I'm saying is that if you design a system with a closed mind, without looking at other issues, then you have a problem. And why I say this is because it is not. We have consistently, during the design process, asked these questions. And all the time we told, we will have a designer and whatever. And if you ever talk to people in the Ministry of Lands, they will tell you that there are improvements that have been done on the Adisasa system that can actually be credited to certain lawyers. That this developer will remember that improvement we did on the system was actually proposed by lawyer so and so, and this one by lawyer so and so, and this one by lawyer so and so, and this one by lawyer and so and so. So we have fully supported this process in terms of digitization. But what has happened is that there are certain design flaws in the system which we highlighted even before the system was put in. But because the ministry was in a hurry to push through this process and achieve a milestone, and you see, the problem is that it has never been done this way in any other country. You move progressively, and even jurisdictions
How many
such
years
as
is progressively?
such as Britain, which have resources and whatever that are far much than the country has, they still proceed on a basis of manual and digital. I mean, you keep a hybrid system. You have a hybrid system. Now, why you have a problem? Another problem again is that the law, as designed, requires the ministry to also have a physical register. So, in as much as you have a digital register, the law requires them to have a physical register. But that is something that the government, and we see government, because government is successive anyway, that the government has consistently refused to implement. Because they believe that if you have a complementary manual system, then it will compromise the digital system.
One.
But that is far from the truth, because that is what the law says. And when you have a challenge, where do you go back to?
You can amend the law if you see that this one, the law as it's written, can create a conflict, as they're saying.
And there's no conflict whatsoever, because when you go on a digital system and there is a challenge with the digital system,
you refer to
the manual.
And manual is easier to manipulate than the digital one because you'll not have a footprint left. So thugs will go and manipulate the physical system. You can go to your Artisasa e-system all you want, as long as if the Msamakweli is the physical one and they've played with it, that's it.
It's not as easy as you put it. I think maybe someone may appreciate it that way. But you see, the problem that we have right now is that if you own a piece of land, and ask any person who owns a piece of land, do they know the historical information about it?
Can they trace the history?
Can they trace the history? Any person. I mean, you probably have a piece of land in Meru.
Actually, what I remember is there were these title deeds which were the size of this table, where you could actually, it was there. You could actually read, this is what happened in this year, this is what happened in this year. Do we still have those things?
Those are now what we call the GLA titles, and they are the registered GLA and RLA titles, which have a history.
Yes.
So when you transfer, it shows you.
So there are titles which don't have a history.
Yes, the most common, the Land Registered Act, Registered Act, the most common ones under RLA do not have the history.
Why?
So the history is in the ministry, in the form of the white cards and the green cards.
You'll go and seek now that.
So you go back to the registry and ask them, supply me with a certified copy of the green card or the white card to be able to see the history of it. Yeah. So and that is where the problem begins. But when you have digitized that
entire process,
entire information, even if there is a manual, someone tries to change the manual document, they cannot interfere with what is in the system.
Yeah.
And it is what actually ensures and what defeats a lot of land grabbers is the historical. Because when you look at the history, this land was first registered in 1963. Then it was transferred to so and so, transferred to so and so. You find that the landowner can come and say, look, it was registered then. I bought it from this person, and when I was buying it, these are the documents that I used, these were the documents, and I have them, and I subdivided, and these are the receipts that were given, and I got this, whatever's. So on the basis of that, and because government always keeps those records, when there is a receipt, there is something, somebody goes back and is able to say, no, wait a minute. This land having been given then could not, a new process of allocation of this land that was done, 10 years later, could not have started.
Yeah.
So this new process, in as much as there is a new process of allocation, and it was followed, and there are some receipts and everything, is questionable. And that's how you cancel the first one.
What are you hoping is going to happen? I mean, there's the hope that you can, be really idealistic about, but then there's also the situation where you see if this doesn't happen, or that this will be the next course of action. What do you see happening with this? Because, my goodness, it's untold the things that could be. You can imagine if somebody's waiting for a search for 2 months, the things that can be happening while those 2 months, are elapsing, or 3 months, or whatever, however long it takes. The amount of money lost, the scams that could be going on in the meantime. I mean, untold. So what is the hope that will be happen? What loopholes are you hoping will be tightened? If we are saying that those who are in the system have knowledge of what is going on, who do we hope is going to change this?
We have written a very detailed memorandum to the ministry, and one of the first things that we have asked them to undertake, and also to undertake in conjunction with other critical players in the industry, is to conduct an audit of the system, so that we are able to independently establish what is working, what extent is it working, what is not working, and why is it not working, so that then, after the review of that process, we are able to say this is where we are with the system. And we are not saying that this is a bad system. It's a good system. There have been transactions which painfully have been assisted to go through, and they have gone through. So it basically means that there is need for some honesty to be able to just say that this is working, this is not working. Can we work with this that is working? And where it is not working, can we have a complementary system to ensure that that is done, even as we look at the following milestones? And I say this because you know how it feels when you have a client, they are unwell, they require medical treatment, they have gone to the bank, the bank is willing to give them a loan. They have come to you so that you can register the charge, they get the money and go for treatment. And you keep chasing that transaction for months after months, and then that person unfortunately loses his or her life. And there have been not just one that I'm aware of, 2 or 3 occasions where people have actually lost their lives.
As they wait
for
the system to serve them.
So the system is not serving the country. It is causing untold pain and anguish on Kenyans. And it's a time we have this honest conversation and say that where it is working, let us work with it. Where it is not working, let us have a complementary system as we move slowly towards full digitization.
You know, I'm still at loss as to why a system that has been worked on, that has taken a while, and it's digitized, it's in very many cases automated, would have such long delays, if not for some deliberate cause of those delays. And that's why I want to ask, is there sincerity and honesty in every stakeholder who's involved here to see that our land registries are digitized, are automated, and they work that way? Do you think everybody wants to see that efficiency brought in? I mean, we talk about technology and technology increasing efficiency. And this is, if you just think about it, just the top of your head, that is what, when you hear, oh, we are digitizing land records and all, you're just thinking efficiency, using technology. And then here we are, we're saying, in fact, let's even start considering going back into a complementary manual system as we fix. Why? What is it?
Let me tell you this, that the only place where there is dishonesty is at the Ministry of Lands.
Why?
Every stakeholder wants a digital system. Every stakeholder wants a digital system. Because to sit, there is, when you experience the joy of having to sit and undertake a process from end to end, and let me tell you why we say so. Because at every stage in a manual system, you know what happens. There is a file that is in Office A that is going through verification. Once it's finished its verification, it goes to a land officer. Once it finishes there, it goes here. Then it finally lands in the desk of a registrar to sign. So there are several processes that are undertaken. We live in this country, and you know that for every stage, there is a toll station.
Yep.
So if I can sit on my desk and submit my documents, and it goes through all those stages without a toll station, would I not want it?
Yeah, and you know others have toll stations.
But there are others who benefit from the toll station.
Yes, and that is why we are saying that if there is any insincerity,
it would be there.
It would be
in the land ministry.
It would be in the ministry, but not
actually
on the stakeholders.
Actually, I'm of a different opinion, because we're assuming that all stakeholders are honest and that they will want an honest system. There are people who will do everything within their power to ensure the system does not work. Some of them are in your profession, some of them are citizens like ourselves, and so that ministry just serves our interest. So even as we cast aspersions, as we say in Kiswahili tunachangia, we are part and parcel of that whole setup. Because in the absence of that, and this is where what you and your society are doing is useful, is that you're saying, no, we are not putting up with this anymore. See, this is something you should have done earlier. It's something that you should have protested, because you actually have the might to do so. Every time we've had discussions of this nature where there's something the government wants to change for the better, a president says, let us clear all pending bills. Money is allocated. We're even told to send. If Ms. opens for 30 minutes at midnight.
My fear, Eric,
Yes.
is as you raise the issues that you're raising now, lawyers will be out there, they'll be protesting tomorrow. It'll be, a huge publicity around it. This gives opportunity to other people to then come in and also hijack everything that you're raising. There will be people who come and say, you see, actually, the SASA has very many chinks. Let's do this. How about we actually now come up with a system that works?
Yes.
We bring in a system that works. This SASA thing, it was locally developed. You see, that's a problem. Somebody else comes and starts that process again from scratch to benefit from.
With the new costs.
Of course.
Sorry, new improved costs.
In the end, we, the taxpayers, will have spent more money trying to digitize the system, trying to create efficiency. But all we are doing is we are creating new billionaires who will come in and hijack this. How will you guard against that?
Eric, I think what you're saying is a possibility, especially if you look at the history that we've had at the Ministry of Lands. But let me underscore something, that the place of digitization in the national sphere and in government services is one that is on an irreversible gear. You cannot reverse it. You can only move forward. And we want to move forward. So what we need, and that is why we're saying that this audit is an extremely beneficial to the country, is that because you then are able to establish exactly what is happening, what is working, and what is not working. Where we sit, being regular users of that system, we know exactly what is working, we know exactly what is not working, and what needs to be done to work. We have given proposals in terms of some of the laws that need to be changed, to be amended, to entrench this system and ensure that it works properly. Yeah, there are things, for example, which we've been even urging the ministry to embrace. One of them is the advanced digital signatures, which then give security that any document that has been executed digitally, you can be able to trace and confirm that it is actually Eric Latif.
Yep.
But as it is right now, we have not embraced advanced digital signature in our SASA. So those are the things that we keep on saying that we need to improve. And that's why I'm telling you that there is a lack of honesty from the ministry. They should be able to say, let us do this, let us move with this, let us move with this, let us move with this, so that together we are looking at the law and the infrastructure, and we develop a system that will be able to work for the entire country.
Thank you for joining us. All the best tomorrow. Let's talk to you after the protests.
And please join us, and also take this opportunity to urge members of the public to come and join us tomorrow, because it is for a worthy cause.
He is the president of the Law Society of Kenya. More conversations coming up. It's 9 a.m.